Welcome, traveler of dreams, to a night unlike any other. Tonight, the air carries not just the stillness of the dark, but whispers of stories from the dawn of time itself. Let the sounds of the modern world, the traffic, the neon glow, the weight of your worries, recede, fading like grains of sand in the desert wind. In their place, listen. Listen to the song of the wind as it passes through the valley of the kings. Listen to the timeless lapping of the Nile as it recounts millennia of tales. And listen to the call from a universe that has slept for ages beneath the sands of history. In this quiet night, let my voice be not just a sound, but a vessel, a simple boat of papyrus reed, ready to carry you from the shore. Together, we will set sail upon the river of memory, journeying back to a time when the world was young and the gods still walked among mortals. Close your eyes and feel it. Feel the last warmth of the day still radiating from the stones of the great temples. Feel the cool caress of the Nile's water as it glides past your hand. A current that has witnessed the rise and fall of dynasties, nourished a brilliant civilization, and carried countless prayers out to sea. Do you see it? In the distance, beneath the ethereal silver of the moon, the great pyramids stand like man-made mountains, their peaks piercing the veil of night to touch the stars. They are not cold tombs. They are gateways, machines of resurrection, ladders to carry the souls of pharaohs home to the undying stars. Around them, colossal temples with columns carved in the shape of lotus and papyrus stand in silent reverence, like slumbering giants guarding sacred secrets. The air is scented with the incense burned in ancient rites, with the rich smell of alluvial soil after the flood, and with something ancient, sacred, and eternal. This is Egypt, Kemet, the Black Land. But our story tonight is not merely of monuments built of stone and gold. We will journey deeper into the very heart of this civilization, into the world view that shaped their every thought, their every action, their every belief. A cosmos that was not a lifeless machine, but a living entity, a grand symphony of opposing yet harmonious forces. At the center of that symphony, the foundational principle of that universe, is a beautiful and powerful concept named Ma'at. Picture Ma'at as an ostrich feather, delicate yet unbreakable. It is truth, justice, order, and harmony. Ma'at is the law that governs the movement of the stars, the procession of the seasons, and the very existence of a stable human society. Ma'at is the standard to which every god, every pharaoh, and every human being was expected to adhere. Without Ma'at, the universe would collapse back into Isfet, chaos, falsehood, and destruction. In this journey through the night, we will be witnesses to creation itself. We will see the universe born from the primordial, chaotic waters of Nun. We will join the sun god, Ra, aboard his eternal bark, marveling at the world in the light of day, and then hold our breath as we follow him on his perilous journey through the 12 hours of the underworld, fighting an endless battle against the serpent of chaos to protect the light. We will live the tragedy of the benevolent king Osiris, feeling the sting of betrayal as he is struck down by his own brother. We will accompany the great goddess Isis on her journey of tears and determination, scouring the land to find every piece of her beloved husband. We will witness the power of love and magic as she resurrects him, an act that would forever define the belief in life after death. And we will cheer for Horus, the avenging son, in his battle to reclaim the throne. A war not just for a crown, but for the restoration of order to the entire cosmos. Finally, perhaps you, the traveler, will face the ultimate judgment in the Hall of Two Truths. Together, we will witness the weighing of the heart, where the conscience of a lifetime is measured against the feather of Ma'at. It is the moment that decides eternal destiny, a powerful testament to the Egyptian belief that every action, no matter how small, has weight and will be judged with absolute fairness. These stories to the ancient Egyptians were not myths. They were truth written in the language of symbols. They explained why life always triumphed over death, why order must always be defended from chaos, and why every soul carries within it the hope of eternal rebirth. So relax your body and let your mind drift. Our vessel is ready. The Nile awaits. The stories of the gods are yearning to be told once more. Let the epic of the cosmos of Ma'at and rebirth begin. Our journey now commences. To understand the soul of Egypt, one cannot begin with its temples or tombs. One must begin with the source of its life, with the great and temperamental God that created the land itself, the River Nile. Look now, as it flows before us, a colossal ribbon of turquoise silk, tearing through the mortal monotony of the Sahara Desert. On either side of the river is a strip of fertile green land, but venture just a few miles east or west, and you will find yourself in another world. Deshret, the Red Land. This is the kingdom of sand, rock, the scorching heat, and absolute silence, the kingdom of the god Set. This stark contrast between the Black Land, Kemet, and the Red Land is the contrast between life and death, order and chaos, Osiris and Set. The entire Egyptian worldview is built upon this fundamental duality, and the life of Kemet depended entirely on a miracle that occurred each year. Imagine you are a farmer named Neb-Ankh, living in a small village by the river around the year 1400 BCE. Your life, like that of millions of others, is governed not by a clock, but by the rhythm of the river. The season of harvest and drought, Shemu, approximately February to June. It is now the end of Shemu. The sky is a cloudless blue, and the god Ra shines his harshest light upon the land. The fields of wheat and barley, which were golden and heavy just months ago, are now nothing but stubble. You, Neb-Ankh, worked tirelessly with your family to bring in the harvest. The village granaries are full, and a festival was held to thank Renenutet, the goddess of the harvest. But now, a quiet anxiety begins to creep in. The earth grows ever more dry, cracking into a web of fine lines. The Nile itself seems to shrink, its current growing lazy. The reeds on its banks wither. The air is hot and dusty. This is a time of waiting, a time of symbolic death. Every day, you and the village elders walk to the riverbank, looking south, upstream, for the first signs of the miracle. They pray to Hapi, the god of the inundation, asking him not to forget their land. They tell the children the story of Osiris, of how he was dismembered and cast away, just as the land is now barren and lifeless. But they also tell of hope, of the rebirth that is to come. The season of inundation, Akhet, approximately June to October. And then one day, it happens. A runner from the south rushes into the village shouting, "The waters are rising! Hapi is coming!" A wave of joy erupts. Everyone rushes to the river. At first, the water is just a little murkier, the current a little faster. But then, day by day, the river transforms. It rises powerfully, unstoppably. Its color is no longer blue, but first turns red from the silt of the Ethiopian highlands, and then finally a deep, rich black from the fertile soil it carries. The water overflows the banks, swallowing the dry fields, submerging everything in a vast, watery expanse. You and your family must move your livestock to higher ground. Your village, built on a mound, becomes a small island in a great sea. This is not a disaster. It is a purification, a renewal. The floodwaters wash away filth and disease, and most importantly, they bring the silt, Hapi's most precious gift. This black mud will be the nourishment for the coming season. During these months, you cannot farm. Instead, you and the other men of the village might be conscripted by the pharaoh to build temples and pyramids. This is how you serve Ma'at, contributing to order while the land undergoes its sacred rebirth. You feel you are part of a great cosmic plan. The season of planting, Pere, approximately October to February. When the floodwaters begin to recede, a new world is revealed. The ground is covered in a thick, moist layer of black mud, glistening under the sun. The air is fresh and cool. This is the moment of creation. You, Neb Ankh, hurry to the fields with your wife and children. You use a simple, ox-drawn plow to turn the soil, while your wife follows behind, casting seeds of wheat from the previous harvest into the furrows. The seeds, symbols of Osiris, are buried in the fertile womb of the earth. The following weeks are a time of hope and care. You must dig small canals to channel water from the remaining pools left by the flood to irrigate the young plants. You pray to Ra for just enough sun and to Shu for gentle breezes. And then, the first green shoots emerge from the black earth. New life is ascendant. The field slowly becomes a lush, green carpet. You watch the wheat grow taller each day, and you understand that, just as Osiris was reassembled and revived by Isis, so too has the land and its life been reborn from the temporary death of the dry season. This cycle of Akhet, Pere, Shemu was not just an agricultural calendar. It was the greatest lesson in cosmology. It taught the Egyptians that life comes from destruction. The land had to be drowned and die in the flood to be reborn more fertile. Order comes from chaos. The chaotic sea of the inundation, Akhet, was necessary to create the order and abundance of the growing season, Pere and Shemu. Death is not the end. Just as the seed is buried in the dark earth, so too is the deceased buried in a tomb to await rebirth in the next world. From the rhythm of the river, mythology was woven. Hapi was not just the god of the flood, he was the lord of the fish and birds of the marshes, the bringer of life. Osiris was not just the king of the dead, he was the lord of the grain, and his death was reenacted with every planting of the seed. Myth was not idle storytelling. It was a spiritual operating system, a symbolic language for explaining and living in harmony with the world. It was also the bedrock of political power. The pharaoh, as the living Horus, had the sacred duty to ensure this cycle ran smoothly. He commissioned irrigation systems and granaries. He presided over the great festivals to implore Hapi to bring a good flood, not too high and not too low. His success in this was proof that he was ruling according to Ma'at, and that the gods were pleased with him. If the flood failed, or came so high that it was a catastrophe, it was a terrible sign that Ma'at was broken, and the pharaoh's power could be questioned. So, as we float upon this Nile, remember that we are floating on the very lifeblood that nourished not just the body, but the soul of a civilization. Every wave, every reed on the bank, every particle of silt is a part of the grand story of order, chaos, and the undying hope for eternal rebirth. The Nile is the first and the last page in the book of Egyptian mythology. Before time, before light, before there was a distinction between up and down, right and left, there was only a singular, primordial state. Imagine an infinite expanse, not of emptiness, but of potential. An ocean of darkness and silence, without wave or motion. The Egyptians called it Nun. Nun was neither good nor evil. It was simply unformed existence. It was the womb of the universe, where everything was possible, but nothing had yet happened. Within this dark, still, and eternal ocean, the first consciousness began to stir. From the depths of Nun, a thought formed itself. I exist. And with that thought, an action took place. A mound of earth, a small hill, slowly rose from the waters, just as the first mounds of land would appear as the Nile's floodwaters receded. This hill was called the Ben, its peak, the first anchor of existence. Atop the Ben, the first god willed himself into being. He was Atum, the complete one. Atum stood alone amidst the vast ocean of Nun. The silence and solitude were profound. A desire arose within him, a yearning for companionship, a need to create a world of meaning. Some priests said that in a solitary act of creation, from his own essence, other gods were born. A more ethereal version tells that he sneezed, and from that breath, the god Shu was born. Then he spat, and from that moisture, the goddess Tefnut came into being. Shu and Tefnut were the first division of the cosmos. Shu was dry air, the wind, space itself. Tefnut was moisture, the dew, the principle of cohesion. They were two sides of the same coin, the first pair. Adam was delighted with his children, but the universe was still dark and chaotic. In a moment of playfulness, Shu and Tefnut wandered off and became lost in the vast waters of Nun. Atum, now a father, felt a panic he had never known before. He called their names, but only silence answered. In his desperation, he removed his single eye from its socket and commanded it, "Go! Find my children!" The eye of Atum, a fiery and powerful entity, plunged into the darkness of Nun. It searched everywhere, its light tearing through the primordial gloom. Meanwhile, Atum, now eyeless, created another to take its place. A long time passed. Finally, the original eye found Shu and Tefnut and brought them back safely. When Atum saw his children, he wept tears of joy. As these tears fell upon the Ben hill, they transformed into the first human beings. This detail is profoundly beautiful. It means humanity was not an afterthought, but was born from the emotion, from the love of the Creator God. When the original eye returned, it saw its place had been taken. It felt betrayed and enraged. To appease it, Adam placed it upon his brow, transforming it into the cobra, the sacred uraeus, the symbol of protection and ultimate power. From then on, this eye would be known as the Eye of Ra, a fearsome weapon against the enemies of order. Shu and Tefnut grew and fell in love. They gave birth to another pair, Geb, the earth god, and Nut, the sky goddess. Geb and Nut were passionately in love. They were locked in a perpetual embrace, so tight that there was no space between them for anything else to exist. Their love was beautiful, but it prevented life from flourishing. Atum, now often known as Ra, realized the universe needed room to grow. He commanded Shu, the couple's own father, "My son, you must separate them." Shu, though his heart ached, had to obey the Creator's command. He moved between Geb and Nut. With the force of the air and the wind, Shu slowly pushed Nut upwards. Nut cried out. Geb tried to hold on, But Shu's strength was irresistible. Finally, Nut was lifted high, her body arching over the world to form the vault of the heavens. Her fingers and toes touched the ground at the 4 cardinal points, becoming the pillars of the world. Her body sparkled with stars. Geb was left below, heartbroken and powerless, becoming the solid earth. They were forever separated by their father, the air. It is said that the morning dew is the tears Nut weeps for her distant husband, and whenever there is an earthquake, it is Geb trying to heave himself upward to embrace Nut once more. Though separated, Nut was already pregnant. Ra, angered by their initial disobedience, had cursed her, saying she could not give birth on any day of the 360-day year. In her sorrow, Nut sought the help of Thoth, the god of wisdom. Thoth, with his infinite cleverness, devised a plan. He went to Khonsu, the moon god, and challenged him to a game of Senate, wagering for a portion of the moon's light. Thoth won again and again, accumulating enough moonlight to create 5 new days. These days were not part of the old calendar, so Ra's curse did not apply to them. On these 5 epagomenal days, Nut gave birth to 5 children in succession: Osiris, Horus the Elder, Set, Isis, and Nephthys. These first 9 gods, Atum, Shu, Tefnut, Geb, Nut, Osiris, Isis, Set, and Nephthys, formed the great Ennead of Heliopolis. They were the first divine family, and their story would be the foundation for all the tragedy, war, and rebirth to come. While the priests of Heliopolis saw creation through physical acts and procreation, in Memphis, the powerful capital city, a different, more profound and abstract school of thought emerged. For them, the supreme creator, the source of all things, was Ptah. The Memphite theology tells that Ptah was not born from none. He was none. He was the primeval hill. He was the mind behind everything. Ptah's creation did not happen externally, but internally. Imagine Ptah existing in the void. He does not act. He thinks. In his heart, which to the Egyptians was the seat of intelligence and emotion, not the brain, Ptah conceived of the entire universe. He thought of Atum and the Ennead. He thought of the sky, the earth, the water, the air. He thought of humans, animals, and plants. He thought of cities, temples, and rituals. A perfect plan, an ideal blueprint of all existence formed in the mind of Ptah. But an idea is not enough. It must be made manifest. And Ptah's tool of manifestation was his tongue, the sacred word. After conceiving everything in his heart, Ptah simply spoke their names. Atum, he uttered, and the god of Heliopolis came into being. Shu, Tefnut, Geb, Nut! And the other gods were born from Ptah's thought. Let there be temples, let there be law, let there be art. And the foundations of civilization were established. Every word from Ptah was an act of creation. This power to turn thought into reality is Heka, or magic. This concept reveals an astonishing level of philosophical sophistication. It posits that the physical world we see is merely a reflection of a higher, ideal world, and that language has a sacred power to bridge the two. Ptah was thus worshipped as the patron of craftsmen, sculptors, and architects, those who, like him, turned an idea in the mind into a tangible reality. If Atum was the progenitor and Ptah the thinker, then Khnum was the hands-on craftsman of life. On the island of Elephantine in southern Egypt, where the Nile enters the country, it was believed that Khnum, the ram-headed god, was the one who personally fashioned the forms of all living things. Picture Khnum in his cosmic workshop. Before him is a potter's wheel. He reaches down and takes a handful of rich clay from the Nile. His skilled hands go to work on the spinning wheel. The clay slowly transforms, taking the shape of a child. He carefully sculpts the eyes, the lips, every tiny finger. This is the Khat, the physical body. But Khnum did not only sculpt the body. At the same time, he fashioned an invisible twin, a spirit of vital energy, known as the Ka. The Ka is the self, the life force that would inhabit the body. After forming both the Khat and the Ka, Khnum would breathe life into the clay figure. Then, he would secretly place this twin set of body and soul into the mother's womb. Every child born was thus a unique work of art, lovingly crafted by the divine potter. This story brings creation to a more personal and intimate level. It shows that every human being is a unique creation, personally attended to and given life by a god. In summary, from Heliopolis to Memphis to Elephantine, we see a diverse portrait of creation. From division and procreation to the power of thought and word to meticulous craftsmanship. Though different, they all share a common message. From a state of primordial chaos, Noon, a new order, Ma'at, was established, usually beginning with the appearance of light and land. This process moved from the abstract, Ta's thought, to the concrete, Khnum's creations. The universe was ready. The stage was set, and now it was time for the first great actor to emerge, bringing with him light and life, the sun god, Ra. When order had been established from chaos, a great source of light exploded into being, illuminating the young cosmos. This was Ra, the sun god, the first king of the gods and the world. His origins are told in many ways. Some legends say he was born from the cosmic egg created by the Ogdoad gods. Others believed he was a child of Geb and Nut. But the most beautiful and prevalent image is that of Ra being born from a giant blue lotus flower, which slowly opened its petals upon the primordial waters of Nun. As the petals unfurled, a divine child appeared, and his first cry was the first ray of light in the universe. Ra was not merely a ball of fire in the sky. He was the embodiment of light, life, and warmth. Every day, Ra undertook a great and perilous journey aboard his solar bark, known as the Manjet, the bark of 1,000,000 years. This journey was an eternal cycle, ensuring the continued existence of the world. Our journey begins in the deepest, darkest moment, just before the dawn. The night boat, the Mesektet, has just survived a terrifying passage through the 12 hours of the Duat, the underworld. The ship is battered, its crew exhausted from a life-or-death struggle against the forces of darkness. Aboard, Ra is in the form of Atum, a weary old man, his back bent, his breath shallow. His energy is depleted. The darkness of the Duat seems to have won. But then, as the boat approaches the final gate in the east, a miraculous transformation begins. The thick air of the underworld thins. A new, fresh life force blows through. Adam takes a deep breath. Strength begins to return to him. His wrinkled skin grows taut. His stooped back straightens. And then, in a flash of brilliant light, the form of the old man vanishes, replaced by the image of a giant, gleaming scarab beetle. He has become Khepri, he who comes into being, the god of rebirth and the morning sun. Khepri does not roll a ball of dung like his earthly counterparts. The ball he rolls is the nascent sun of the new day. It is not yet the blazing orb of noon, but a fragile, ruby-colored sphere full of the promise of a new day. Khepri, with his tremendous strength, begins his task. Using his powerful legs, he slowly pushes the orb of light up from the horizon. It is a sacred and arduous labor. With every millimeter the orb is pushed upward, the darkness recedes a little more. On the mortal plane, the world begins to respond. The sacred baboons, creatures of the god Thoth, sit on the cliff tops, facing east, and begin to chatter and cry out in welcome. The blue lotus flowers, which had closed during the night, slowly open their petals to receive the first rays of light. The morning dew, the tears of nut, glisten like diamonds on the leaves before vanishing. In the villages, roosters begin to crow. People awaken, step out of their homes, and the first thing they do is face the east, bowing in gratitude for the victory of the light. For them, the dawn was not an obvious astronomical event. It was a recurring miracle, proof that Ra, in the form of Khepri, had once again triumphed over the forces of chaos. Every morning was a new creation. As the solar orb is pushed higher, it grows larger and more brilliant. Khepri has completed his task. Now, at the apex of the sky, he transfers to the dayboat, the manjet. This is a magnificent vessel, made of gold and silver, adorned with lapis lazuli and turquoise. As he steps aboard the manjet, Khepri transforms again. He assumes his most familiar and powerful form, Ra-Harakti, Ra, Horus of the two horizons. He is a man with the head of a hawk, his sharp eyes able to see everything on earth, crowned with the blazing solar disk. Ra does not travel alone. The manjet is a floating palace, a mobile royal court. With him are the most important gods. Thoth, the god of wisdom, stands at the helm, acting as navigator. With his infinite knowledge of the stars and the cosmic currents, Thoth charts the precise course for the bark. Ma'at, the goddess of truth and order, stands at Ra's side. Her presence ensures that his journey always follows cosmic law and that his light brings justice and harmony, not chaotic incineration. Saya, perception, and Hu, utterance, two gods representing Ra's creative powers, stand on either side. Sia allows Ra to perceive all things, and Hu turns Ra's thoughts into effective commands. And at the prow, a strong, vigilant figure stands guard, Set. In the daytime, Set's role is not as prominent. He is like a sentinel, his wild power seemingly dormant under the brilliant sun. But his presence is a reminder that even in broad daylight, the potential for chaos still exists, and a protector is always needed. From on high, Ra-Harakti looks down upon his kingdom. He sees the Nile snaking below like a silver serpent. He sees the tiny figures of farmers toiling in their fields, their sweat glistening in his sunlight. He sees children playing. He sees priests performing rites in the temples built in his honor. A sense of infinite responsibility fills Ra. He is not just a king, he is the father, the giver of life, Ankh, prosperity, Uja, and health, Seneb. His light allows plants to grow and seeds to sprout. His warmth sustains all living things. Without his daily journey, life on earth would wither. This is the peak of Ra's power, the moment when Ma'at reigns supreme. The sky is clear, the world is orderly and harmonious. Everything is in its proper place, nourished by the eternal light. But nothing is permanent, not even the power of noon. As the manjet begins its descent in the west, Ra's light gradually changes. The brilliant yellow turns to orange, then a deep crimson. The shadows on the ground lengthen like the fingers of the approaching night. The world begins to prepare for rest. Along with the light, Ra too transforms. His energy wanes. The shoulders of the hawk-headed god begin to slump. The sharp eyes grow tired. By the time the bark docks at the western gate of the sky, the entrance to the underworld, Ra has once again taken the form of Atum, the creator, old man. He leans on a staff, his back bent, his face lined with the wisdom and weariness of a long day's reign. The brilliant manjet remains at its dock. Atum disembarks, and the night boat, the Mesektet, is waiting. It is not as splendid as the day boat. It is a functional, sturdy warship ready for the battles to come. The entourage also changes. Now, the fiercest warrior gods and the most powerful magicians come aboard. Set's role becomes paramount. He no longer stands silently. He takes his place at the prow, his bronze spear held tightly, his glowing red eyes scanning the gathering darkness ahead. His controlled chaos is now their most important weapon. As Atum steps aboard the Mesektet and the western gate closes behind him, the sun completely vanishes from the mortal world. Night falls. For the Egyptians, this was a moment of anxiety. Their god, their light, had just entered a journey from which there was no guarantee of return. The Duat was not a hell of punishment. It was a complex realm, a shadowy mirror of Egypt, filled with dangers and mysteries. The river upon which the Mesektet sailed was not the Nile, but a river of darkness. The Duat was divided into 12 regions, corresponding to the 12 hours of the night, and each hour presented a new trial. The first and second hours. The boat passed through quiet but menacing waters. The banks were lined with the unjudged dead, aimless spirits. The first gates were guarded by giant serpents. Thoth had to recite their secret names and the correct magic spells to be allowed passage. The fourth and fifth hours. The boat reached the realm of Seker, an ancient god of death. This was a vast desert of sand deep beneath the earth, where there was no water. The Mesektet had to magically transform, growing wings and a serpent's head, so it could slither across the dunes. The silence was terrifying, broken only by the hissing of fire demons hidden beneath the sand. This was a test of transformation and adaptability. The seventh hour. This was where the greatest challenge began. This realm was the home of Ra's ultimate enemy, Apep. But before facing Apep, they had to confront a form of Osiris, not the benevolent king, but Osiris, the enemy of Ra, an aspect representing the inertia and stillness of death. Ra had to use his power to overcome the pull of this static darkness. The journey through the Duat was a race against time. If they were delayed in any hour, the dawn would never come. In the deepest hour of the night, when Ra's energy was at its lowest, the enemy appeared. A dead silence fell. The river stopped flowing. The water began to churn. And then, from the abyss of the Duat, something colossal arose. It was Apep, or Apophis, the serpent of chaos. Apep was not just a large snake. It was the embodiment of Isfet, of non-existence, of absolute destruction. Its body was miles long. Its scales absorbed all light. Its eyes were twin vortexes of pure nothingness. Its roar was not a sound, but the negation of sound, capable of paralyzing the will of the gods. Apep's only goal, to swallow the sunboat and plunge the entire cosmos into the eternal darkness from which it came. The battle began. Apep created chaotic sandbanks to ground the boat. Then it tried to drink the river itself. The gods on board fought bravely. The magicians chanted spells of binding. The warriors shot arrows of light, but all seemed futile against the monster's power. It was then that Set acted. The god of storms and violence let out a roar greater than Apep's. It was the roar of the desert, the roar of unrestrained fury. His chaotic power erupted. He did not fight with magic or cunning, he fought with brute force. With his bronze spear in hand, he leaped from the boat, ran across the water like a storm, and launched himself at the giant serpent's head. This was the great paradox. The power of chaos, Isfet, represented by Set, was being used to fight an even greater chaos, to protect the order, Ma'at, of Ra. Set was the only one who was not paralyzed by Apep's roar, because his own nature was also chaos. Their battle was a terrifying and magnificent sight. Finally, Set, with a thunderous blow, drove his spear deep into Apep's head. The serpent let out one last agonized roar, its colossal body convulsed, and then sank back into the abyss. It was not dead. It could not be killed, for chaos is eternal. But it had been repelled, at least until the next night. After the battle, the boat, though victorious, was nearly spent. Ra, in his form as Atum, now had almost no life force left. The boat drifted into the 12th hour, the most sacred region of the Duat, the realm of Osiris. The atmosphere here was completely different. There were no more threats, only a profound peace. Osiris, the king of the dead, sat on his throne, his body wrapped like a mummy, yet radiating a green light of burgeoning life. Around him were the spirits of the justified dead, the axe. This was the most crucial moment of the night. The Ba soul of Ra, weak and tired, left the body of Atum and floated gently before Osiris. And then a miracle occurred. The soul of Ra and the soul of Osiris merged into one. This was a union of profound symbolic meaning. Light, Ra, fused with darkness, Osiris. Life, Ra, found renewal in death, Osiris. And death, Osiris, was re-energized by life, Ra. In that moment, the opposition between life and death was erased. They were not enemies, but necessary partners in an eternal cycle. Death was not the end of life, but the womb in which life was reborn. From this sacred union, a new, powerful, and pure energy was created. The soul of Ra, now fully recharged, returned to the body of Atum, and from there he began the process of transforming into Khepri once more. The cycle was complete. The boat, with its renewed life force, moved toward the eastern gate, ready for another dawn. The journey of Ra was not just a story about the sun. It was an epic of perseverance, of the endless struggle between order and chaos, and it was the most powerful affirmation of the Egyptians' core belief that even in the deepest darkness, light will always find a way to be reborn. Every sunrise was a promise fulfilled. If the story of Ra is the epic of the cosmos, then the story of Osiris, Isis, Set, and Horus is the great drama of family, power, love, betrayal, and rebirth. This is perhaps the most famous and profoundly influential myth shaping the Egyptian concept of kingship, the afterlife, and the power of the feminine. The story begins in a golden age, when the gods ruled directly on earth. Osiris, eldest son of Geb, the earth, and Nut, the sky, succeeded his father as king of Egypt. Osiris was a benevolent and civilizing king. He taught humanity how to farm, how to make wine and beer, and he gave them laws so they could live in peace and order. He married his sister, the goddess Isis, a wise, beautiful, and magically powerful wife. Under their rule, Egypt became a land of plenty and happiness. But that happiness sowed the seeds of envy. The younger brother of Osiris, Set, the god of the harsh desert, storms, and chaos, grew jealous of the success and love the people had for his brother. Set represented the wild, untamable lands, a stark contrast to the fertility that Osiris brought. His jealousy festered, and he devised a cruel plot to seize the throne. Set secretly took the measurements of Osiris's body and commissioned a magnificent chest, beautifully decorated, but crafted to fit his brother's form exactly. He then threw a great feast and invited Osiris and 72 other conspirators. In the middle of the party, Set brought out the chest and declared he would gift it to whoever fit inside it perfectly. One by one, the guests tried, but none fit. Finally, it was Osiris's turn. Without suspicion, he happily lay down inside the chest. Instantly, Set and his followers slammed the lid shut, nailed it down, and sealed it with molten lead. They carried the chest containing the imprisoned king and threw it into the Nile. The chest floated out to the great sea and vanished. The kingdom fell into mourning. Set declared himself the new king. The goddess Isis, her heart broken, refused to accept her husband's death. She cut her hair, put on mourning clothes, and began an arduous journey to find Osiris's body. With the help of her sister Nephthys, Set's wife, but loyal to Osiris, Isis traveled everywhere, asking everyone she met. At last, she learned that the chest had drifted all the way to Byblos, a city in Phoenicia, modern-day Lebanon. There, a great tamarisk tree had miraculously grown up around the chest, encasing it within its trunk. The king of Byblos, amazed by the tree's beauty, had it cut down and made into a pillar for his palace, unaware of the divine body within. Isis, using her wisdom and magic, made her way to Byblos. She disguised herself as an old woman and sat by the city well, speaking to no one except the queen's handmaidens. She braided their hair and infused them with her divine, fragrant scent. The queen noticed this and invited the old woman to the palace, appointing her as nurse to the young prince. Each night, Isis would secretly place the child in a sacred fire to burn away his mortality and grant him eternal life. One night, the queen spied on her and screamed in horror at the sight, interrupting the ritual. Isis then revealed her true divine form, chastised the queen, and demanded the pillar containing her husband's body. The king, terrified and awestruck, agreed. Isis recovered the chest, opened it, and embraced the body of her beloved husband. She brought the body back to Egypt, hiding it in a thicket of papyrus reeds in the Nile Delta, while she searched for herbs to perform a ritual of revival. But tragically Set, while hunting one night, stumbled upon the body of his brother. In a fit of furious rage, he desecrated the body, tearing it into 14 pieces and scattering them all across Egypt, believing that this time Osiris could never be made whole. Once again, Isis began a heartbreaking search. She transformed into a kite, a bird with a mournful cry, and flew along the Nile, searching for every piece of her husband. With the help of Nephthys and Thoth, the god of wisdom, she recovered 13 pieces. The final piece, the symbol of his virility, had been eaten by a fish. Undeterred, Isis used her magic and molded a replacement from clay and gold. Then, with the help of Anubis, the god of embalming, Isis performed the first mummification in history. She carefully reassembled the pieces of Osiris and wrapped his body in linen bandages. With her powerful magic and boundless love, she flapped her wings over him, breathing the breath of life back into his form. Osiris was revived. However, this resurrection was not complete. Because his body was no longer whole, Osiris could not return as king of the living world. Instead, he became the king of the afterlife, the Duat, the just judge of the souls of the dead. His death was not an end, but a transfiguration into a new form of existence, a new role. Before Osiris departed for the underworld, Isis, in the form of a hawk, hovered over his revived body and miraculously conceived a child. She gave birth to a son, Horus. To protect him from Set's wrath, Isis hid Horus in the dense marshes of the delta. Horus grew up sheltered by his mother, nourished by a desire for vengeance and the will to reclaim his father's throne. When Horus came of age, he challenged Set for the kingship. The contendings of Horus and Set lasted for 80 years, filled with many fierce battles and magical contests. They transformed into hippos to battle underwater. They held a boat race, where Horus tricked Set with a boat made of painted stone. In one brutal fight, Set tore out one of Horus's eyes. In another, Horus injured Set. Eventually, their case was brought before a tribunal of the gods. After much debate, and with the support of his mother Isis and the god Thoth, Horus was declared the rightful heir of Osiris. He was crowned king of Egypt, uniting the two lands. The eye that Horus had lost, after being magically healed by Thoth, became the Wadjet eye, a powerful symbol of protection, healing, and wholeness. This myth became the foundation of Egyptian political theology. Every living pharaoh was considered the incarnation of Horus, the rightful ruler on earth, the upholder of Ma'at. When a pharaoh died, he did not die but became one with Osiris, the king of eternity. Horus represented order and justice restored, while Set, though defeated, was not destroyed. He was exiled to the desert to continue his rule over the chaotic wastelands. This again shows that chaos still exists, but it has been controlled and pushed to the margins of the civilized world. Isis became the model of the ideal wife and mother, the supreme symbol of the feminine, loyal, devoted, resilient, and powerful. Her story is a testament to the power of love to triumph even over death. And the entire myth is a powerful affirmation of the core Egyptian belief. From destruction and death, new life and order will always be reborn. We have mentioned Ma'at many times, the golden thread woven throughout the tapestry of Egyptian mythology. Now, it is time to delve deeper into this core concept, for without Ma'at, the Egyptian universe would unravel. Ma'at is not just a goddess wearing an ostrich feather. She is a living principle, a cosmic operating system that functions on 3 distinct levels: the cosmic, the political, and the personal. The symphony of the cosmos. Ma'at as natural law. Look up at the desert night sky. Thousands upon thousands of stars glitter like diamonds on black velvet. They do not move chaotically. The Egyptians called them the unwearying ones because they follow precise, predictable paths, night after night. That harmonious movement is Ma'at. Look to the east at dawn. The victory of Ra over Apep is the victory of Ma'at over Isfet, chaos. The cycle of the moon, governed by the god Khonsu, is an expression of Ma'at. The actions of the creator gods were acts of establishing Ma'at. When Shu lifted Nut from Geb, he was creating an ordered space for life to exist. At the cosmic level, Ma'at is the inherent order of all things, the dynamic equilibrium of opposing forces that ensures the universe does not collapse back into the chaos from which it was born. It is physics, astronomy, and theology all in one. The pharaoh's burden, Ma'at, as political order. If the gods maintained Ma'at in the heavens, then on earth, that sacred burden fell upon the shoulders of the pharaoh. The pharaoh was not merely a king, he was the Neb-Ma'at, the lord of Ma'at. He was the living link between the world of the gods and the world of mortals. His entire existence was dedicated to serving Ma'at. Imagine we are in the great hall of the Karnak temple. The air is thick with incense. Colossal stone columns rise like a stone forest. Here, the pharaoh is performing the most important ritual of a ruler, offering Ma'at to the gods. In his hands, he holds a small, golden statuette of the goddess Ma'at. He raises it before the giant statue of Amun-Ra and recites a prayer, vowing to rule with truth, to feed the hungry, to protect the weak, and to smite the enemies of Egypt. This symbolic act was a sacred contract. The pharaoh promised to rule justly, and in return, the gods would grant Egypt prosperity, the Nile would flood properly, the harvests would be bountiful, and the nation would be at peace. A successful reign was seen as proof that the pharaoh was upholding Ma'at. Famine, unrest, or military defeat were alarming signs that the balance was broken. The weaver's thread, Ma'at, in a single life. Ma'at was not just for gods and kings. It permeated every aspect of daily life, serving as the moral compass for each individual. To live a life according to Ma'at meant to live a righteous life. Let us meet a carpenter named Pentu. He is not a man of high status, just an ordinary craftsman, but his daily life is an exercise in Ma'at. When a customer orders a chair, he does not use poor wood or do a shoddy job. He builds it carefully and sells it for a fair price. That is Ma'at. When he sees a widowed neighbor in need, he mends her leaky roof without asking for payment. That is Ma'at. He respects his parents, teaches his children right from wrong, and does not lie or steal. For Pentu, as for millions of Egyptians, living according to Ma'at was not just about creating a good society. It was the most important preparation for the journey after death. For they believed that every deed, every thought, every word of their life was being recorded in their heart, and that heart would be the sole witness at their final judgment. The final journey, the soul of Pentu. Years pass. Pentu lives a long and peaceful life. One day, old and weary but without regret, he passes away surrounded by his family. But for the Egyptians, this is not the end. Pentu's spiritual components, his Ba and Ka, separate from his physical body, the Khat. His family begins the funeral rites, commissioning the 70-day process of mummification to preserve his body as an eternal vessel for his soul. His son purchases a papyrus scroll, a copy of the Book of the Dead, which is placed within his linen wrappings. It is his map and passport for the next world. After the funeral, Pentu's soul begins its journey, guided by the gentle yet firm presence of the jackal-headed god, Anubis, the protector of the dead. He travels through the perilous paths of the Duat, and finally arrives at the great gates of the Hall of Two Truths, where the ultimate judgment will take place. The Hall of Two Truths, the weighing of the heart. Pentu, now a spirit, trembles as he enters the hall. It is impossibly vast. At the far end, Osiris, king of the dead, sits enthroned, flanked by Isis and Nephthys. Along the walls sit 42 fearsome divine judges. Anubis leads Pentu to the center of the hall where he must make the negative confession. Facing each of the 42 judges, he must declare his innocence of a specific sin. His voice quivers but remains true. O far strider, who comes from Heliopolis, I have not committed sin. O fire embracer, who comes from Karaha, I have not robbed with violence. O breaker of bones, who comes from Heracleopolis, I have not told lies. O eater of entrails, who comes from the Council of 30, I have not made anyone weep. After the confession, the most critical moment begins. Anubis leads Pentu to a great golden scale. The jackal god gently takes Pentu's ib, his heart, the seat of his conscience, and places it on one of the pans. On the other pan, an attendant places a single pure white ostrich feather, the feather of Ma'at. On one side, the entire life of a man. On the other, the symbol of absolute truth and justice. Thoth, the ibis-headed god of wisdom, stands ready with his reed pen and palette to record the verdict. And below the scale, a terrifying creature waits. This is Ammit, the devourer of the dead, a monster with the head of a crocodile, the forequarters of a lion, and the hindquarters of a hippopotamus. If Pentu's heart, heavy with sin, outweighs the feather, Ammit will lunge forward and consume it. This is the second death, a complete and final annihilation, an erasure from the cosmos. Pentu watches the scale. He sees his whole life flash before him, the good deeds and the moments of anger, the acts of kindness and the selfish thoughts. Will it be enough? The pans of the scale begin to waver, up, down. Then, slowly, they come to a rest. They are perfectly, miraculously level. The heart of Pentu, the carpenter, a heart filled with a life of simple, honest deeds, weighs exactly the same as the feather of truth. A sigh of divine approval echoes through the hall. Thoth announces the verdict. The heart of Pentu is true. He is Ma-Keru, true of voice. Let him pass. Ammit growls in disappointment and slinks back into the shadows. The fear in Pentu vanishes, replaced by an overwhelming sense of joy and relief. Horus, the hawk-headed god, the rightful heir, steps forward with a smile of approval. He takes Pentu by the hand and leads him to the throne of Osiris, who gives a welcoming nod. Horus then guides Pentu through a gateway of light. He finds himself in Aru, the field of reeds. The sky here is always a gentle turquoise. The air is fresh, scented with lotus blossoms. A pristine branch of the heavenly Nile flows through fields of barley that grow taller than a man. Pentu sees his parents, long deceased, smiling and welcoming him. He sees his old friends. There is no sickness, no sorrow, no poverty here. He is given a plot of land to tend, but the Shabti figures buried with him come to life to do the work for him. His eternal life is one of peace, plenty, and happiness. This was the ultimate reward for a life lived in accordance with Ma'at. The weighing of the heart was not a threat, but a promise that the universe, while sometimes chaotic, is fundamentally just, and that every action, no matter how small, has weight, has meaning, and will be judged by the absolute truth of the feather. To the ancient Egyptians, a person was not a simple duality of body and soul. They viewed an individual as a complex composite, a collection of physical and spiritual components, all of which had to be preserved and reunited to achieve a true rebirth. Death was not an end, but the moment these components separated, and the entire purpose of funerary rituals, from mummification to tomb building, was to help them find each other again and merge into an eternal entity. Let us return to our carpenter, Pentu, who has just been declared true of voice. While Pentu's spirit was undergoing judgment, his physical form was being prepared back on earth. Each component of his being had its own role and destiny. Hat, the physical body. This was the vessel, the boat for the soul in the mortal world. After death, Pentu's cat was not treated as a mere corpse. It was treated with reverence, for it was the house to which the soul would need to return. It was taken to the place of purification to begin the sacred process of mummification. Ren, the name. His name, Pentu, was carefully carved on a small stela and on the walls of his tomb. To the Egyptians, a name contained a person's essence and existence. As long as Pentu's name was spoken or read, a part of him continued to exist in the world. Shut, the shadow. Pentu's shadow, which had always followed him in life, was now its own entity, a mysterious and protective aspect of his soul, able to move freely through the underworld. Aib, the heart. As we saw, the heart was the seat of intelligence and conscience, the witness at the judgment. Having been found pure, it was returned to his spiritual form. Ka, the life force, spiritual double. The Ka is a complex concept. It is the vital energy, the invisible twin of a person created by the god Khnum at the same time as the body. During life, the Ka resides within the body. At death, it separates, but remains within the tomb. The Ka needs sustenance to survive. This is why Pentu's family would regularly visit his tomb chapel, bringing offerings of bread, beer, and meat. They did not believe he would literally eat them. Rather, his Ka would absorb the life force, the spiritual essence of these offerings. The tomb was therefore called the Hbabti Ka, the house of the Ka. Ba, the personality soul. The Ba is the most dynamic component of the soul. It is often depicted as a bird with a human head, Pentu's head. The Ba is the personality, the unique character, the sum of everything that made Pentu, Pentu. It was the Ba that undertook the journey through the Duat and stood for judgment. After death, the Ba could travel freely. By day, it could fly out of the tomb, revisit familiar places, and watch over its living descendants. But every night, it had to return to the tomb to rest and temporarily reunite with the Ka and the mummified body, Khat. This temporary reunion was necessary to recharge the Bay's energy, allowing it to continue its arduous journey. And the ultimate goal was a permanent reunion, to transform into a new, more exalted state of being. After passing through the Hall of Judgment, Pentu's soul did not immediately arrive in the field of reeds. That was the final destination, but the path was still fraught with challenges. The successful judgment was merely the ticket for passage. Now, Pentu had to prove he was worthy of the destination. This journey is the process of tempering the soul, of transforming the Ba and Ka into a third entity, the Ak. The Ak is a transfigured spirit, a shining or effective soul. An Ak is no longer bound by earthly needs. It can travel freely in the world of the gods, sail with Ra on the sun boat, and communicate with its living descendants through dreams to offer help or warnings. To become an Ak was the ultimate goal of every Egyptian, the completion of the cycle of rebirth, the destiny of becoming an immortal star in the heavens. But to achieve this state, Pentu's Bia had to navigate the final trials of the Duat, using the most important weapon his family had equipped him with, the papyrus scroll of the Book of the Dead. If Ra's journey through the Duat was a cosmic battle, Pentu's journey was a spiritual pilgrimage, a test of knowledge and purity. Confronting the gatekeeper. Pentu's Ba arrives at a massive, fiery gate, guarded by a knife-wielding demon. "None may pass who do not know my name," the demon roars. Pentu is terrified, but then he remembers his scroll, now a spiritual copy carried by his Ba. He unrolls it and recites Spell 144. "O you with the inverted face, who comes from the fiery pit, I know you. I know the secret name of this gate. Open for me, for I am pure." The demon growls, but is compelled to open the gate, for knowledge of its true name has given Pentu power over it. Crossing the lake of fire. Next, Pentu faces a vast lake of burning fire. There is no bridge. He again consults the Book of the Dead and recites the spell for not being scalded by fire. As he speaks, a cool path appears across the flames, and he walks through unharmed. The snare of the soul catcher. In a dark valley, Pentu encounters demons who cast nets to ensnare spirits. He quickly recites the spell for escaping all nets. The invisible snare before him dissolves, and he continues on his way. The test of the ferryman. To cross the final river before Aru, Pentu must persuade the sullen ferryman, Mahaf, he who looks behind. Mahaf will not transport anyone who cannot answer his riddles about the parts of the boat. "Tell me the name of the oars," he demands. Pentu, having studied his scroll, confidently replies, "The fingers of Isis are their name." "Tell me the name of the mast." "The guide of the sky goddess is its name." After answering all the questions correctly, Mahaf grudgingly ferries him across. This journey shows that for the Egyptians, salvation depended not only on morality, but also on knowledge, gnosis, an understanding of the secret laws and names of the divine world. Now we can understand why the earthly preparations were so critically important. Mummification. The process of embalming was a sacred act of recreation. By removing the perishable organs, desiccating the body with natron salt, and anointing it with oils, the priests were not just preserving a body, they were transforming the cot into a sahu, a spiritual body, an eternal statue. This was the physical anchor, the homing beacon that the Ba and Ka could recognize and return to. Without the mummy, the Ba would become a lost, wandering ghost, doomed to eventually fade away. The tomb, Perjet, House of Eternity. The tomb was not a grave. It was a launch pad and a docking station. It was a microcosm of the universe. The spells on the walls served as a permanent Book of the Dead. The false door was an energy portal for the Ka to pass through to receive offerings. The entire structure was designed to protect the mummy and provide a safe environment for the soul's reunification. Grave goods, the items buried with the deceased, were not for show. They were practical tools. The food offerings nourished the Ka. The furniture was for the home and the afterlife. And most importantly, the Shabti figurines. Pentu was buried with 401 of these small statues. It was believed that in Aru, spirits still had to perform manual labor. When Pentu was called upon to work, he would simply recite the spell inscribed on the figures. "O Shabti, if I, Pentu, am called to do any work, you shall say, 'Here I am,' and take up your hoe and your basket and go to work in my place." Having navigated all the trials of the Duat, Pentu's Ba, now tempered and purified, finally reaches its true destination, the Field of Reeds. Here, in the kingdom of Osiris, the most momentous event occurs. His ba finds its way back to his tomb on earth. It flies through the stone walls into the dark burial chamber. There, it meets its ka, which has been waiting faithfully. The two spiritual entities recognize each other and merge into one. This unified soul then re-enters the sanctified, mummified body, the Sahu. In that instant, a spiritual explosion of light occurs. The fusion of Kat, Ba, and Ka creates a new entity. Pentu is no longer Pentu, the deceased carpenter. He has undergone the final transformation. He has become an Ak. A shaft of light flies from the tomb into the sky. Pentu, in his Ak form, is now a spirit of light, free and powerful. He has conquered death. He has become part of the cosmic order. He can travel with Ra on the sunboat, visit his descendants in dreams, and live an eternal, blissful life in the field of reeds. He has truly become one of the unwearying ones, a new star shining in the night sky, an eternal testament to the triumph of life and order. The story of Pentu, like that of every Egyptian, is an affirmation that death is not a wall, but a door. It is an arduous journey, requiring careful preparation and a righteous life. But the final reward is immortality, a return to and a reunion with the great eternal symphony of the cosmos. The divine world of the Egyptians was not a chaotic collection of strange deities. Imagine it instead as a complex society, a great family, full of relationships, conflicts, loves, and loyalties. It is a cosmic stage upon which each god and goddess has a role to play, a function to perform, a symbol to uphold. Together, they enact the grand drama of existence. They are not arbitrary beings born of fantasy. Each deity is a personification, a face given to a law of nature, an aspect of life, or one of humanity's deepest fears and hopes. At the apex of the divine world are the gods tasked with maintaining the very structure of reality, those who ensure that Ma'at always prevails. Ra, the eternal engine of life. As we have seen, Ra is more than the sun. He is the primeval source of energy, the engine of the cosmos. His daily journey is the affirmation of the cycle. Khepri, creation and new beginnings in the morning. Rahorakti, sustenance and peak power at noon. And Atum, completion and withdrawal in the evening. Ra is the clearest evidence that life requires constant motion and a continuous battle against darkness. He is the guarantee that the light will always return. Ta, the architect of thought. If Ra is energy, then Ta of Memphis is the consciousness behind that energy. He is the god of craftsmen, but on a cosmic scale, he is the great architect who thought the universe into being before it existed. Ta represents a profound philosophical truth. Every tangible thing originates from an intangible idea. A chair exists in the mind of the carpenter before it is made. So too did the universe exist in the heart of Ta before he used the word, hu, to make it real. He is the principle of intelligent design. Thuth, the Prime Minister of Wisdom. Between the radiant power of Ra and the silent thought of Ta, there is a god who keeps everything running smoothly. Thuth, the ibis-headed god of knowledge, is the operating system of the cosmos. He is the scribe, the scientist, the god of writing, hieroglyphs, sacred carvings, mathematics, and astronomy. It was Thoth who calculated the 365-day calendar, who charted the course of the stars. In the disputes of the gods, such as that between Horus and Set, Thoth acts as the fair-minded arbiter, the one who records all events. He is the master of knowledge and magic, Heka, who understands the words of power that can alter reality. Thoth is the embodiment of the intellect that organizes and directs the raw power of the universe. If the gods above govern the cosmos, the family of Osiris governs the cycle of life, death, and succession on Earth. Their story is the central drama, directly mirroring the agricultural cycle and the political system of Egypt. Osiris, the promise of rebirth. Osiris is not a grim god of death. He is hope. His green skin is not the color of decay, but the color of new growth, of vegetation sprouting after the flood. He embodies the seed that is buried in the dark earth, death, only to sprout into the wheat that sustains humanity, rebirth. His kingdom of the Duat is not hell, but a cosmic womb, a necessary place of transformation and renewal. Osiris is the affirmation that death is not an end, but merely a transition. Isis, the power of love and magic. Isis is one of the most complex and powerful goddesses. She is the model of the faithful wife and devoted mother, but she is anything but weak. She is Weret Hekau, great of magic. It is she who, through her persistence and magical knowledge, defies death itself. She is the active agent, the one who searches, reassembles, and breathes life anew. Isis represents the power of love and devotion to overcome even the greatest tragedy, a symbol of feminine power and maternal protection. Horus, the righteousness of power. Horus, the avenging son, is the embodiment of restored order. He is the legitimate king, the one who vanquishes chaos set to reclaim what is rightfully his. Every pharaoh on the throne of Egypt was considered the living Horus. The victory of Horus over Set was not just a myth, it was the divine charter that legitimized the entire pharaonic system. His healed Wadjet eye is the eternal symbol of wholeness, health, and protection from evil. Set, the necessary chaos. Set is the most complex character. He is the villain of the Osiris story, the embodiment of the barren desert, storms, envy, and violence. But as we've seen, he is also the hero at the prow of Ra's boat, the only one strong and brutal enough to fight off Apep. This paradox reveals the sophistication of Egyptian thought. They understood that chaos is not purely evil. It is a necessary and powerful energy. Unchecked, it destroys. But if controlled and properly directed, it can be used to protect order from an even greater chaos. Set is the adversary, the test, the necessary chaos against which order can prove its worth. Between the world of the living and the dead, certain deities specialize in guidance and protection, ensuring the transition is made safely. Anubis, the compassionate guide. With his black jackal head, Anubis might look fearsome, but he is one of the most benevolent gods. He is not a god of death. He is the psychopomp, the guide of souls. The jackal was chosen because they patrol the edges of the desert where the cemeteries were located, like natural guardians. Anubis is the one who takes the hand of the newly deceased, gently leading them through the dark paths of the Duat. He is the Lord of the sacred land, the necropolis, and the master of the art of embalming. It was he who helped Isis mummify Osiris, establishing this crucial ritual. His role is one of protection and guidance, not punishment. Hathor and Sekhmet, the two faces of the feminine divine. This is a classic example of duality in Egyptian mythology. Hathor, the house of Horus, is often depicted as a beautiful woman with cow's horns and a sun disk, or sometimes as a divine cow. She is the goddess of love, joy, music, dance, and intoxication. Her temple at Dendera was a place of festival and celebration. She's the life-affirming, nurturing principle. Sekhmet, the powerful one, is Hathor's dark twin. She is the lioness-headed goddess, the embodiment of war, pestilence, and divine retribution. A myth tells how Ra, angered by humanity's plotting against him, sent his eye in the form of Sekhmet to punish them. She slaughtered mankind with such a bloodlust that she almost wiped them all out. Ra, regretting his decision, had to trick her. He ordered thousands of jars of beer to be dyed red to look like blood and poured over the fields. Sekhmet, thinking it was blood, drank until she fell into a drunken stupor, thus saving humanity. But precisely because she could cause disease, she was also a powerful goddess of healing, for only one who understands sickness can cure it. Hathor and Sekhmet are, in essence, two aspects of the same feminine energy. It can nurture and create, but it can also destroy with terrifying ferocity. One of the most remarkable features of Egyptian religion was its ability to adapt and synthesize. Instead of eliminating old gods, when political situations changed, they tended to merge them. Amun-Ra. When Thebes rose from a provincial town to the capital of a mighty empire, its local god, Amun, the Hidden One, rose with it. To unify the nation's faith, the Theban priests brilliantly merged Amun with the supreme sun god, Ra. Thus, Amun-Ra was born, a supergod who was both the unseen, transcendent, mysterious creator, Amun, and the visible, life-giving sustainer, Ra. He became the king of the gods, the divine patron of the empire. Ta-Sokar Osiris. This is another example of philosophical fusion. Three Memphite gods associated with death were merged into one. Ptah, the creator of life. Sokar, the hawk god of the Saqqara necropolis, representing the moment of death and the stillness of the tomb. And Osiris, the god of rebirth. This triad encapsulates the entire cycle: life, death, rebirth. This syncretism shows that Egyptian religion was not a rigid dogma. It was a living organism, able to evolve, change, and absorb new ideas without losing its core identity. Ultimately, the Egyptian pantheon is a mirror reflecting their understanding of their world, their society, and themselves. Each god is a face given to a fundamental force of nature or a deep human experience. By understanding their gods, we understand their view of the cosmos. A world not of random chance, but of profound, divine purpose, enacted daily by a cast of extraordinary and timeless characters. In the Egyptian cosmos, order, Ma'at, was not a given state. It was a fragile bastion, a carefully tended garden carved out of a wild and chaotic forest. That forest, the realm of chaos, Isfet, never truly disappeared. It was always there, just beyond the edge, lurking, waiting for a moment of weakness, a crack in the fortress wall to surge in and consume everything. To understand the value of light, we must understand the nature of the darkness. And in that darkness dwell entities whose names were spoken only in fearful whispers. The greatest enemy, not of any one god, but of existence itself, is Apep, or Apophis. Apep is not a god. It was not born, not created. It is the residual essence of the unformed primordial void of Nun, a crystallization of all that is anti-creation. If Ra is the will to exist, Apep is the will to annihilate. If Ptah created the world with the word, Apep's roar is the absolute silence that can erase all sound. Picture it. A colossal serpent, its body miles long, coiled in the deepest abysses of the duat. Its scales are not black, but the color of the void, a color that absorbs all light and reflects nothing. Its eyes have no pupils, just twin vortexes of nothingness, and its gaze can paralyze even the mightiest gods. Apep has no ambition, no plan for conquest. It does not want Ra's throne. Its only desire, its only instinct, is to swallow the light and drag everything, gods, humans, the stars, and time itself, back to its original state, a silent, dark, and inert ocean of none. It is the embodiment of cosmic entropy. Every night, as Ra's solar bark enters the duat, Apep rises. The confrontation is inevitable. It does not attack simply. It uses its magic to create chaotic sandbanks, setau, in the river of the duat, trying to ground the boat. It attempts to drink the river dry, to leave the bark stranded and helpless. And most terrifyingly, it uses its roar. This is not a sound the ear can hear. It is a vibration of non-existence that attacks the will, sowing doubt and despair in the hearts of Ra's entourage. As we know, only Set, the god of controlled chaos, could face Apep directly. Their battle was a clash of two types of chaos. On one side, the destructive, meaningless chaos of Apep. On the other, the vital, violent, but ultimately order-serving chaos of Set. The fight against Apep was not confined to the divine realm. It was a struggle in which all of humanity had to participate. In temples across Egypt, priests performed a daily ritual known as the banishing of Apep. They would create an effigy of the serpent from wax or papyrus. They would write Apep's name on it, and then they would perform a series of symbolic acts. They would curse it, reciting the most terrible maledictions. They would spit on it. They would use their left foot, considered impure, to trample it. They would use knives to stab and cut the effigy to pieces. Finally, they would cast it into a special fire to be utterly consumed. The Egyptians believed these acts on earth transmitted strength to the gods in the duat, weakening Apep and helping to ensure Ra's victory. It showed that humans were not passive spectators in the cosmic drama, but active warriors, fighting alongside their gods. And the most terrifying truth about Apep: it is immortal. It can be defeated, grievously wounded, and driven back, but it can never be truly destroyed. Because chaos is an integral part of the cosmos. As long as there is order, there will be the shadow of chaos. This means the battle is never-ending. Every night is a new fight. Every dawn is a fragile victory, a gift of grace, not a guarantee. If Apep is the threat on a cosmic level, then Ammit is the threat on a personal level. But it is crucial to understand that Ammit is not an evil demon. She does not hunt for souls. She is an indispensable part of the divine judicial system. Let us return to the Hall of Two Truths. Ammit, the devourer of the dead, or eater of hearts, waits patiently at the foot of the scales of justice. Her hybrid form, the head of a crocodile, the forequarters of a lion, and the hindquarters of a hippopotamus, is a combination of the three most dangerous animals to an Egyptian, those that could pull a person underwater, tear them apart on land, or crush them in the marshes. She is the embodiment of a sudden and violent end. Ammit does not act on her own whim. She is the executioner. She awaits the verdict from Thoth. When a heart is declared pure, like Pentu's, Ammit shows no disappointment. She simply continues to wait, for that was not her prey. But imagine another soul, that of a corrupt official, a man who lived a life of lies and oppression. His heart, heavy with sin, is placed on the scale. It sinks down without mercy, sending the feather of Ma'at flying upwards. Thoth shakes his head and declares, "This soul has failed." Only then does Ammit act. With terrifying speed, she lunges forward. There is a sharp crunch as her crocodile jaws shatter the sinful heart. The soul lets out one final horrified scream and then vanishes. The death that Ammit delivers is not damnation to hell. It is far worse. It is the second death, a complete annihilation. That soul ceases to exist. There is no chance for rebirth, no becoming an Ak, no memory, no name. It is erased from the cosmic record, as if it had never been. For a civilization that yearned for eternity, this was the most terrifying fate imaginable, the ultimate victory of Isfet over an individual soul. Ammit, therefore, is the guarantor of the purity of the field of reeds, the gatekeeper who prevents injustice from contaminating paradise. Besides these two great entities, the Duat was home to countless other terrifying creatures, demons and fiends, who served as trials on the path of the dead. The gatekeepers. Each of the 12 gates of the Duat was guarded by a fearsome deity, wielding long, sharp knives. They had horrifying names like He Who Lives on Maggots, Blood Drinker from the Slaughter Place, or Eater of the Excrement of His Hind Quarters. To pass, a soul had to be not only pure, but also know and speak their secret names. Fiendish serpents. The Duat was filled with fire-spitting serpents, multi-headed serpents, and serpents with legs. They were either minions of Apep or independent chaotic beings, always seeking to attack or lead souls astray. The Hunters. There were demons who cast nets to capture the Ba, or turtle-headed fiends who could swallow souls whole. Each type required a specific spell from the Book of the Dead to be neutralized. These creatures did not only exist in the Duat. The Egyptians believed some could escape and inflict harm on the living, bringing sickness, nightmares, and misfortune. This is why they wore so many protective amulets and performed regular purification rituals in their homes. Why would a cosmos governed by Ma'at contain so much horror? The answer lies in the role of fear itself. Fear was not a negative emotion to be eliminated. It was a tool, a necessary force for maintaining order. The fear of Apep inspired devotion and ritual action. It reminded the Egyptians that life and order were fragile, and that they must actively participate in their defense through ceremony and support for the pharaoh and the gods. The fear of Ammit was a powerful moral compass. It compelled individuals to take responsibility for their actions. The prospect of complete annihilation was a more effective deterrent than any mortal law, encouraging people to live an honest and just life. The fear of the demons of the Duat underscored the value of knowledge and preparation. It pushed people to learn about the gods, to memorize spells, and to prepare diligently for the journey after death. It affirmed that salvation came not just from virtue, but from wisdom. Like a shadow that allows us to perceive the shape of an object in the light, the entities of darkness and chaos help to define and highlight the value of Ma'at. They were the necessary adversary, the trial through which both gods and mortals could prove their strength, their wisdom, and their commitment to order. Without the struggle, there is no victory, and without the fear of chaos, there can be no deep appreciation for the beauty of harmony. In our modern world, the word magic often conjures images of fantasy, of wands and spells that break the laws of nature. But for the ancient Egyptians, this conception was entirely foreign. Magic, to them, was not supernatural. It was as natural as the Nile, as real as the sun. It was a fundamental force of the universe, an energy latent in all things, and it had a name: Heka. Heka was not a collection of tricks or illusions. Heka was the very energy that made creation possible. Let us return to the creation myth of Memphis. When the god Ptah conceived of the universe in his heart, Sia, perception, and used his tongue to name all things into being, Hu, utterance. It was Heka that was the electric current, turning sound into substance, turning idea into existence. Heka existed before the gods themselves. It was a primordial force, the universe's inherent power that allows consciousness to act upon matter. Therefore, magic was not an act of defying nature, but of using nature at a deeper level. An Egyptian magician, Sau, or lector priest, Heb, was not a sorcerer. He was a scientist of the unseen, an engineer of the soul. He learned to understand and direct the currents of Heka, just as a farmer learned to dig canals to direct the waters of the Nile. Aboard Ra's solar bark traveled the god Heka himself. His presence was not for show. It was he who used his power to energize the words of Thoth, turning them into effective spells against Apep. Heka is the power that turns intention into result. The foundation of the practice of Heka lies in a core concept: the power of the Ren, or name. To the Egyptians, the name of a person or thing was not merely a label. It was its sonic essence, the crystallization of its entire being. To know the true name or secret name of a god, a demon, or even a stone was to gain power to influence it. The most famous myth illustrating this is the story of Isis and Ra. The tale goes that when Ra had grown old, he had begun to falter. Saliva would dribble from his mouth and fall to the earth. Isis, ambitious to gain ultimate power to best protect her son Horus, secretly followed Ra and collected his spittle. She mixed it with earth and, using her Heka, fashioned a unique, venomous serpent. She placed this serpent on the path where Ra walked daily. As Ra passed by, the divine serpent bit him. An agony unlike any he had ever known coursed through his body. This venom was unique, for it was made from his own divine essence. He burned with a fire from within, yet shivered with a deathly cold. The other gods gathered, helpless and worried, for none could cure the injury. It was then that Isis appeared, her face a mask of concern. "Divine Father, what has happened? Was it a serpent that brought this pain upon you? If so, I can destroy it with my magic, but I must know your true name. For a spell is only effective when it is spoken with the true name of the afflicted." Ra, in his agony, began to list his many titles. "I am the maker of heaven and earth. I am Khepri in the morning, Ra at noon, and Atum in the evening." Isis patiently shook her head. "Father, those are the names known to all. This venom will only yield to the secret name you have never revealed to anyone." The pain became unbearable. Ra knew he had no other choice. He asked the other gods to leave. Alone with Isis, he did not speak the name with his mouth, but transferred it directly from his heart to her heart. The moment Isis received the name, she felt a surge of immense Heka flow into her. She now possessed the power of Ra. True to her word, she recited the spell of unbinding, and the venom dissolved. Ra was healed, but from that day forward, Isis became the mistress of the gods, she who knew the name to which all things must answer. This story teaches that knowledge of the true name is the key that unlocks the door to power. Heka was not reserved for the gods. It was widely practiced in all levels of society, especially by priests and magicians. Imagine a scene in a village. A child has been stung by a scorpion and lies in a feverish delirium. The family has called the SSUNW, the village physician. He has extracted the venom, cleaned the wound, and applied a poultice. That is the physical medicine. But the Egyptians believed that sickness also had a supernatural cause. Perhaps a demon had guided the scorpion. So they also called for a sow, a magician specializing in healing. The magician arrives, carrying a chest filled with papyrus scrolls and amulets. He does not simply wave a wand. Diagnosis. First, he diagnoses which supernatural force is behind the attack. Mythological reenactment. Then he begins a ritual. He will recount the myth of how the infant Horus was also stung by a scorpion and was healed by his mother Isis's magic, with the help of Thoth. As he tells the story, the magician identifies the sick child with Horus. He says the poison in you is not the scorpion's poison. It is the poison that attacked Horus. I am not myself, I am Thoth, come with the magic of Isis. Command. By reenacting a successful mythological event, the magician draws the power of that event into the present. He does not plead, he commands, O poison, depart from this child, as you departed from Horus. I command you in the name of Ra, in the name of Isis, in the name of Horus. He might use an ivory wand, inscribed with protective deities, to draw a protective circle around the child. Finally, he gives the child an amulet to wear, an amulet that has been charged with Heka to prevent future attacks. For them, medicine and magic were two sides of the same coin, a holistic approach to healing both body and spirit. Heka was applied in countless situations. Protection. People wore amulets of the Wajid eye for health, the Ankh for life, and the Jed pillar for stability. Homes often had spells painted near the doorway to ward off demons. Love and fertility. There were spells to attract a lover, or to help a woman have a safe childbirth. Agriculture. A farmer might bury a magical brick in the corner of his field to pray for a bountiful harvest and protect it from pests. Art and architecture. When an artist carved a statue, he believed it could be brought to life through the opening of the mouth ceremony, a high magic ritual that allowed the spirit of the god or the deceased to inhabit the statue. The Book of the Dead. As we've seen, this entire book is a compendium of Heka, a survival kit for the soul. The transformation spells to become a crocodile, a hawk, a lotus, are the ultimate expression of Heka's power to redefine one's own reality. If one god embodied this entire system of knowledge, it was Thoth. He was not the source of Heka, that is, a primordial force, but he was the one who understood and codified it. It was believed that Thoth was the author of the 42 books containing all the knowledge of humankind, including the most secret books of magic. Thoth was the god of scribes, scholars, and magicians. He represented a crucial truth. Knowledge is power. To understand the hidden laws of the universe is to be able to use them for good. The magic of the Egyptians, therefore, was not blind superstition. It was a complex and sophisticated science, a systematic attempt to understand and interact with a living universe filled with unseen forces. And Heka was the language of that universe. Until now, we have spoken of Egyptian mythology as if it were a single, unified system. But in truth, it was a great river fed by many local tributaries, each with its own unique color and texture. For over 3,000 years of history, political and religious power shifted between cities, and each great city developed its own distinct school of theology, emphasizing its own patron gods and creation stories. Imagine a journey along the Nile, stopping at three of the most important cities at different times. Each will give us a different perspective on the cosmos. Heliopolis, city of the sun. This was the most ancient and perhaps most influential theological center. As the center of worship for Atum-Ra, Heliopolis developed the creation story we are most familiar with. Atum emerging from Nun, creating Shu and Tefnut, and from them, the great Ennead, the 9 gods. The theology of Heliopolis is cosmic and natural. It focuses on the movement of the sun, the separation of the sky and earth, and the family relationships of the gods to explain the order of the world. It is the foundation, the Old Testament of Egyptian mythology. Memphis, city of the intellectual creator. Located near modern-day Cairo, Memphis was the first administrative capital of a unified Egypt. As a center of power, art, and craftsmanship, it's no surprise that its theology reflected this. The patron god of Memphis was Ptah, the divine architect and craftsman. As we have seen, the creation story of Memphis is far more philosophical and abstract. Ptah did not create the world through physical acts, but through thought and speech. This is a highly sophisticated concept, elevating the power of the intellect and the idea. It shows the confidence of a cultural capital that believed ideas are what shape reality. Thebes, city of the empire. For many centuries, Thebes, modern Luxor, was a mere provincial town. Its local god was Amun, a god of the air whose name means the hidden one. But when the Theban princes led the struggle to expel the foreign Hyksos rulers and establish the powerful new kingdom, Thebes became the capital of an empire stretching from Sudan to Syria. As the city rose, so too did Amun. But how could a local god become the king of the gods? The Theban priests performed a masterstroke of theological genius. They merged Amun with the supreme sun god, Ra, creating Amun-Ra. This new super-god possessed both the unseen, transcendent, mysterious nature of Amun and the visible, life-giving power of Ra. The great temples of Karnak and Luxor, the largest religious complexes ever built, are a testament to the absolute power of Amun-Ra, the god of the empire. The coexistence of these three centers shows that Egyptian mythology had no single pope or Bible. It was a continuous dialogue between different traditions. Contrary to what many believe, Egyptian culture was not closed off. They were surprisingly open to adopting gods from other lands, especially during times of cultural exchange through trade or war. The Canaanite gods. During the New Kingdom, as Egypt expanded its empire into the Near East, they came into contact with the gods of the Canaanites. Baal, the god of storms and thunder, was identified with Egypt's own Set, as both had similar roles. Baal was worshipped as a powerful war god. Goddesses like Astarte and Anat were also adopted, seen as fierce warrior goddesses, daughters of Ra, and sometimes as consorts of Set. Serapis, the god of two worlds. The most impressive example of syncretism occurred during the Ptolemaic period, after Alexander the Great's conquest. The Greek Ptolemaic dynasty faced a challenge: how to rule a land with two different cultures, two languages, and two religions. They needed a bridge. And so they created a new god to perform this task: Serapis. The recipe for Serapis. He was a deliberate combination. His name likely derives from Osiris Apis, Oserapis, a fusion of Osiris, king of the dead, and the sacred Apis bull of Memphis. This appealed to the Egyptians. The look. Serapis was not depicted as a mummy or an animal-headed god. He was given a completely Greek appearance, an older bearded man seated on a throne, much like Zeus or Hades. This appealed to the Greeks. The function. He was given the functions of both worlds, a god of the afterlife and rebirth, like Osiris, as well as a god of healing, like the Greek Asclepius, and agriculture. The magnificent Serapeum temple built in Alexandria became the greatest center for his cult, a place where Greeks and Egyptians could worship side by side. Serapis is a testament to the pragmatism and extraordinary adaptability of Egyptian religious thought. In the midst of this diverse and syncretic flow, there was one historical period that went against it all. A sudden and violent storm nearly uprooted the entire ancient religious tree. This was the Amarna period, under the rule of the pharaoh Akhenaten. The context. By the middle of the 18th dynasty, the priesthood of Amun-Ra at Thebes had become fabulously wealthy and powerful. The Karnak temple owned vast tracts of land, gold mines, and wielded enormous political influence, sometimes even challenging the authority of the pharaoh. The heretic king. A new pharaoh, Amenhotep IV, came to the throne. He was not a traditional warrior or politician. He was a thinker, a mystic, a poet. He felt the polytheistic system with its thousands of gods and complex rituals had become corrupt, a departure from an original, simpler truth. He believed there was a single, universal truth. The revolution. Akhenaten declared that all the old gods were false. There was only one true god, the Aten. The Aten was not Ra, the anthropomorphic sun god. The Aten was the physical disk of the sun itself, the universal source of light and warmth that gave life to all creatures on earth, not just in Egypt, but everywhere. The Aten had no human form and was only represented as a disk whose rays of light ended in small hands offering the Ankh, life, to the royal family. Radical actions. To implement his revolution, Akhenaten took unprecedented steps. He changed his name from Amenhotep, Amun is satisfied, to Akhenaten, effective for the Aten. He ordered the closure of the temples of Amun-Ra and the other gods across Egypt. Their wealth was confiscated. The names of Amun and other gods were chiseled off temple walls. Even the plural word for gods was forbidden. And most shocking of all, he abandoned the capital of Thebes and built an entirely new capital city from scratch in the desert, which he named Akhet Aten, Horizon of the Aten, modern-day Amarna. The failure. Akhenaten's revolution, arguably one of the first forms of monotheism in history, failed spectacularly. It was too radical and imposed from the top down. The people. The common people could not connect with an abstract god like the Aten. They were accustomed to their personal, accessible gods like Osiris and Isis, who listened to their prayers and promised a detailed afterlife. The religion of the Aten had no mythology, no Osiris, no weighing of the heart. The elite. The powerful priesthood, stripped of its power, became his mortal enemy, working in the shadows to undermine him. Soon after Akhenaten's death, his revolution collapsed. His successor, Tutankhaten, changed his name to Tutankhamun, abandoned Amarna, and restored the entire old pantheon. Akhenaten's name was cursed, erased from king lists, and he was referred to as the Great Criminal, or the Heretic. The swift rise and fall of the Amarna period is a powerful testament to the resilience of the traditional polytheistic faith. It showed that a flexible, diverse religious system deeply rooted in the daily lives of the people could not be easily replaced by an abstract ideology, no matter how sublime or rational it might seem. It also revealed that even in a seemingly stable civilization, revolutionary ideas could erupt, challenging every foundation that came before. Every kingdom, no matter how great, must one day decline. Every river, no matter how mighty, must eventually meet the sea. The ancient Egyptian faith, a great tree that had stood tall and cast its shade for over 3,000 years, was no exception to this rule. Its fading was not a sudden event, but a process that lasted for centuries, a long and somber twilight. When Alexander the Great entered Egypt in 332 BCE, he was hailed as a liberator from Persian rule. He and his successors, the Ptolemaic dynasty, showed respect for the native religion. They proclaimed themselves pharaohs, performed traditional rituals, and even built magnificent temples in the Egyptian style, like those at Dendera and Edfu, which still stand nearly intact today. The creation of the syncretic god Serapis was a testament to this effort at cultural fusion. However, beneath this surface of harmony, a profound shift was occurring. The intellectual and power center of the Mediterranean world was now Alexandria, a Greek city. The great library of Alexandria was filled with Greek philosophy and science. Though the Egyptian priests still maintained their rituals, they had lost their monopoly on wisdom and political influence. Their religion, in the eyes of the Greek ruling class, was slowly becoming something ancient, exotic, and mysterious, rather than a living force shaping the state. When the Romans replaced the Greeks as rulers of Egypt in 30 BCE, this process accelerated. To the Romans, Egypt was a province, the breadbasket of the empire. Roman emperors still held the title of pharaoh, but it was a formal acknowledgement, lacking the deep theological weight of the past. The gods were still worshipped, especially Isis, whose cult spread throughout the Roman Empire. People from Britain to Afghanistan found in her the image of a compassionate mother, a goddess of salvation who promised life after death. But as she was taken out of her Nile Valley context, the story of Isis gradually lost its deep connection to the agricultural cycle and its original cosmic mythology. It became a personal faith, detached from its cultural roots. The decisive change came from the rise of a new religion, one also born in the East, but carrying a very different message: Christianity. Christianity spread rapidly along the Nile. It offered a promise of salvation to all, rich and poor alike, through a single, loving, and self-sacrificing God. For many Egyptians living under Roman rule and facing economic hardship, this message was immensely powerful. They did not need to build expensive tombs or memorize hundreds of complex spells. All that was required was faith. The Coptic Church of Egypt, one of the oldest Christian communities in the world, was born and grew strong. A clash of worldviews was inevitable. The polytheistic faith of Egypt was deemed paganism by the Christian leaders, the worship of demons. In the late 4th century CE, the Roman Emperor Theodosius I issued a series of decrees declaring Christianity the state religion and outlawing all forms of pagan worship. It was a fatal blow. The great temples, where rites had been performed uninterrupted for millennia, were closed, converted into churches, or abandoned to the desert sands. Statues of the gods were smashed. The priesthood was suppressed. Imagine a final scene taking place around the year 550 CE on the remote island of Philae, home to the last functioning temple of Isis, An old priest, perhaps the very last who knows the ancient rites, performs his rituals alone for his goddess. His prayers are lost in the vast, empty halls. The sacred flame in the sanctuary flickers. Outside, the world has changed. His fellow believers have converted to the new faith or passed away. Then one day, a Byzantine garrison arrives, carrying the emperor's decree. They shut and seal the great stone gates of the temple forever. The flame of Isis, which had burned for thousands of years, is finally extinguished. A great silence fell over the land of Egypt. The conversation between mortals and the ancient gods had ended. With the disappearance of the religion came the loss of the final key to understanding it, the language. The beautiful and complex system of hieroglyphs was the language of the temples and tombs. With no priests left to teach it, and no scribes left to learn it, knowledge of how to read and write this script faded and then vanished completely by the 5th century. For the next 200 years, Egypt became an enigma. Travelers from Europe and the Arab world gazed upon the inscriptions on the stone walls with awe, but with zero comprehension. They were just strange pictures: a bird, an eye, a snake, a sitting man. They invented fantastic theories. The hieroglyphs were magical symbols, alchemical formulas, or a secret lost history of the world. The true voice of Imhotep, of Hatshepsut, of Akhenaten, of Ramesses the Great, was utterly silent. A great civilization was locked away, and the key had been thrown away. The miracle of rebirth came from an unexpected place. In 1799, during Napoleon Bonaparte's invasion of Egypt, a troop of French engineering soldiers under the command of Officer Pierre-François Bouchard were digging fortifications near the town of Rashid, which Europeans called Rosetta. They struck a broken slab of black stone, one side covered in writing. The officer immediately recognized its importance. The stone had 3 scripts. The top was in ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, the middle in another Egyptian script called Demotic, and the bottom was in ancient Greek, a language scholars could read. They understood that this could be the same text, translated 3 times. The Rosetta Stone became a sensation, the greatest hope for deciphering the millennium-old mystery. Copies of the stone were sent across Europe, and an intense intellectual race began. But the man who would truly break the code was a young French genius, Jean-François Champollion. Champollion was a linguistic prodigy, obsessed with Egypt since childhood. He mastered dozens of languages, including Coptic, which he correctly believed was the direct descendant of the ancient Egyptian language. For years he worked tirelessly, comparing characters, building theories. And then, on September 14, 1822, the historic moment arrived. Champollion was studying copies of cartouches, the oval rings containing royal names, from other monuments. He looked at the name of a famous pharaoh, RSS. An idea sparked. The first symbol was a sun disk, and, in Coptic, sun is Ra. He hypothesized, Ra Messes. Ra has born him. He tried it on another cartouche, one with an ibis, the symbol of the god Thoth, followed by characters he had identified as MS. Thoth Mez. Thutmose. Thoth has born him. It worked. He had found it. The hieroglyphs were not purely symbolic, nor purely alphabetic. They were a brilliant, complex system combining both. Overcome with emotion, Champollion ran to his brother's office, threw his papers on the desk, and exclaimed, "Je tiens mon affaire! I've got it!" and promptly collapsed, remaining in a faint for 5 days from pure exhaustion and elation. He had found the key. The lock was opened. Champollion's decipherment did more than unlock a language, it resurrected a civilization. For the first time in over 200 years, the walls began to speak again. Historians could read the chronicles of battles, scholars could read works of literature, and most importantly, theologians and Egyptologists could read the hymns, the myths, and the Book of the Dead. Osiris, Isis, Ra, Horus, their stories could once again be told in the words of the people who created them. This discovery, along with Howard Carter's 1922 discovery of the nearly intact tomb of Tutankhamun, created a wave of Egyptomania around the world. Today, that ancient faith has had a second rebirth, not in temples, but in the imagination of all humankind. Its symbols, like the Ankh, the key of life, the eye of Horus, Wadjet, and the scarab beetle, Khepri, have become familiar global icons, appearing in fashion, jewelry, and art. Its mythology has become a source of endless inspiration for popular culture. We see its gods and mummies in blockbuster films like The Mummy, in popular TV series like Stargate and Marvel's Moon Knight, in epic video games like Assassin's Creed Origins, and in countless novels and comic books. Though no one still worships Ra or builds temples to Isis, their stories have achieved another kind of immortality. After a long, silent sleep, the gods of the Nile have been reborn in the consciousness of the 21st century, continuing to fascinate and inspire us with the mysteries of life, death, and the cosmos. Our vessel of time has reached the end of its journey. We set sail from the banks of the Nile, witnessed the birth of the universe from chaos, journeyed with Ra through the sky and the darkness, wept for the tragedy of Osiris, celebrated the victory of Horus, and held our breath for the judgment of a soul. Now, as our boat gently comes to shore, it is time to look back at the grand panorama, to truly comprehend the profound and magnificent world view that the civilization of Egypt has left behind. If there is a single unifying truth that runs through all of Egyptian mythology, it is this: life is a cycle. In their way of thinking, there were no absolute beginnings and endings as we often conceive them. Instead, all of existence was part of an eternal circular flow of transformation. Consider this: the sun does not die at night. It is merely undertaking a journey of renewal through the duat, to be reborn, glorious, in the morning. The Nile does not die in the dry season. It is merely gathering its strength, resting before its rebirth in the flood that brings fertile silt. Osiris did not truly die. His death was a transfiguration, a transformation from the king of the living world to the eternal king of rebirth. And humanity, likewise, does not face annihilation after death. Death is but a threshold, a challenging journey of separating the components of the soul, purifying them, and then reuniting them into an immortal Akh, a star in the sky. This worldview was not born of blind optimism. It was born from a deep observation of nature. The Egyptians saw cycles in everything: the day and night, the seasons of the year, the life and death of the vegetation, and they extrapolated that law to the entire universe. For them, the cosmos was a perfect recycling machine, where nothing was ever truly lost, only changed from one form to another. This is a worldview that offers immense comfort and hope, a belief that even in the darkest moments, rebirth and a new beginning are an absolute certainty. The Egyptian universe was not a place of absolute peace. It was a symphony, a great dance between opposing pairs. The existence of the cosmos was not the complete victory of good over evil, but the maintenance of a fragile balance between them. We have seen this everywhere. Ma'at, order, and Isfet, chaos, are the two foundational forces. Ma'at must be constantly reinforced and defended, for Isfet always seeks to encroach. Ra, light, life, and Apep, darkness, non-existence, fight every night. Ra's victory is never permanent. Horus, order, law, and Set, chaos, wild strength, are not just enemies. They are two faces of kingship. A king needs both the righteousness of Horus and the controlled power of Set to rule effectively. Set is not destroyed, only subdued and exiled, for his strength is still needed to protect Ra. Kemet, the fertile black land, and Deshret, the barren red land, exist side by side, defining the boundaries of life. The sophistication of this thought is astounding. They did not see the world in black and white. They understood that darkness helps to define light, that challenges make victory meaningful, and that a universe of only pure order would be a universe of stagnation, without growth. It is the tension, the constant struggle between these opposites that creates energy, creates movement, and makes the cosmos alive. Why have these stories survived for over 3,000 years and continue to fascinate us today? Their strength lies in their extraordinary ability to adapt and to coexist. As we saw, Egyptian mythology was not a rigid, dogmatic system. It was flexible, able to absorb new gods and merge different concepts to suit political and social changes. It could be told in different ways in different cities, yet still retain its ideological core. And even when the ancient faith itself faded, these stories found a new path to rebirth. They have transcended the walls of their temples to live on in the consciousness of all humanity. They appeal to us because they touch upon universal and timeless themes: the struggle for justice, the power of maternal love, the fear of death, and the hope for a just afterlife. The story of Isis searching for her husband is not just an Egyptian legend. It is a universal story of love and loss. The Battle of Horus is not just about the Egyptian throne. It is the story of a younger generation's struggle to find its place and right the wrongs of the past. Finally, our journey has shown us that ancient Egypt never truly disappeared. It simply transformed, just like its gods. Its Khat, its physical body, remains standing tall under the African sun, the pyramids, the temples, the colossal statues. They are the stone skeleton of a civilization, defying time. Its Ren, its name, and its voice were resurrected by Champollion and the Egyptologists who followed. After more than a millennium of silence, the walls could tell their own stories again. And its Ba and Ka, its soul, is alive and well, traveling in our modern world. It lives in every book, every film, every museum exhibit. It lives in the curiosity of a child seeing a mummy for the first time. It lives in the awe of a tourist standing before the grandeur of Karnak Temple. It lives on in our collective imagination. Ancient Egypt is not just a chapter in a history book. It is a living cosmos, an eternal legacy that continues to teach us about the harmony of the universe, the beauty of the cycle, and the undying hope that even after the longest night, the dawn will always come. Conclusion. A good night, farewell. And now, as our journey across the desert of time has truly come to a close, as the stories of gods and pharaohs settle into silence, let your mind come to rest. Let the images of majestic temples and the gentle Nile become the landscape for your dreams tonight. Let the last warm light of the day from the god Ra, who has triumphed over darkness, gently guide you into a deep and peaceful sleep. Let Ma'at, with her feather of truth and balance, keep your dreams in harmony and serenity, undisturbed by the worries of life. And should your spirit wander in the realm of dreams, know that the benevolent god Osiris, the king of rebirth, will be there, gently leading you across the rivers of memory, to a shore of absolute peace. Thank you, traveler of time, for listening and for journeying with me on this long night. Now, sleep well.